All right, this is section 6.7b. In the previous video, we had learned how to solve radical equations, and today we're going to talk about how to solve radical inequalities. So aspects of this lesson are going to be similar to the previous video, but there are a few nuances that are specific to when, instead of an equal sign here, it's some type of an inequality, less than or equal to, greater than symbol. Okay, so what we're going to do first is, with these problems, if you have a radical symbol and if it's an even root, which generally speaking, all of these problems here are going to be pretty much just square roots. If there is an even root, there's going to be some type of domain restriction. Remember, that's because we don't want to have imaginary numbers as part of our solution. So we need to state what the domain is. You can see there's a little space right here for us to go ahead and state what the domain is. Okay, so what we would do for your domain restriction is you should just grab the radicand. That's the portion that is underneath the square root symbol. That represents the number that you are taking the square root of. Remember, we do not want 5x minus 10 to represent a number that's negative. So what we're doing is we're forcing 5x minus 10 to represent either 0, that's where the equal to comes from, or a positive number. That's why I'm choosing a greater than symbol. Okay, you're always going to set it greater than or equal to 0. You're going to just solve this inequality here. Okay, move the 10 over, divide by 5. My domain restriction is that x has to be a number that is greater than or equal to 2. Now, that's not necessarily what my solution to this inequality over here is, but I have to make sure that whatever solution I get by solving this inequality, that solution is not going to violate what I'm saying the domain restriction is. So I'm just going to go ahead and circle my domain restriction so that I don't lose that in my work. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go ahead and solve this radical inequality, much like how we solved the radical inequations the other day. I'm going to go ahead and put a box around the radical symbol. I'm going to go ahead and isolate that. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides so that the only thing on the left side is the radical symbol. Okay, I'm then going to remove that radical symbol by, since it's a square root, squaring both sides. That leaves me with 5x minus 10 on the left is less than or equal to 25 on the right. Keep going with solving this for x until I get down to the end here and I get that x is less than or equal to 7. Now this is where I have to take my domain restriction into account. Okay, I need to think through here, and you don't have to draw a number line, but sometimes you may find this beneficial to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead on the number line. I'm going to put a 2 here representing my domain restriction is a 2, and I'm going to go ahead and put a 7 on my number line because that represents this initial answer that I got. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and graph both my domain restriction and this initial answer that I got together on the same number line. So I'll make the domain restriction green. That was a greater than or equal to. So I'm putting a closed-in dot going to the right because it's greater than. Okay, and then I'll graph the initial answer I got less than or equal to 7, so closed-in dot, but now I'm going to go to the left. Okay, and what I'm looking for is I'm looking for where do the green graph and this orange graph kind of collide or overlap with each other. Okay, and I'm noticing here that it feels like right here at 2 they agree, right here at 7 they agree, and it looks like they're agreeing on everything in between 2 and 7. So I'm going to take the initial answer, put that on my official answer blank, but then I need to make sure that I don't just leave that as my answer. I don't want to just let x be any number less than 7. I need it to stop once it becomes 2. If I let it go smaller than 2, then it's going to start violating my domain restriction. So you're going to swing around here and you're going to put this symbol, which is actually acting as a greater than or equal to symbol, with a 2 here. The official answer is that x has to be greater than or equal to 2 and it can be less than or equal to 7. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this next one here. Again, you want to start by grabbing your radicand, 2x plus 2. You want to set up your domain restriction by setting that greater than or equal to 0. You're going to solve this inequality for x, and you're going to go ahead and circle that as your answer. Okay, we're going to go ahead and proceed here by trying to isolate our radical symbol here. So I'm going to go ahead and move this 1 to the other side of the equation. I will go ahead and square both sides. That gets rid of the radical symbol on the left. Keep solving this for x, move the 2 over, then divide by 2. I'm going to go ahead and write the initial answer that you get on the line, but we have to account for our domain restriction as well. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a number line. I'm going to put my domain restriction value on the number line as well as the initial answer that I got. I'm going to go ahead and graph this. Now this time this is still greater than or equal to -1, so I'm going to go close dot to the right. Okay, although on this one, my answer that I got is that x is greater than or equal to 7. So that's starting here, also going to the right. I'm looking for where do the domain restriction and my answer both agree with each other. Well, it feels like they both agree right here at 7, and then they start agreeing at everything to the right of 7. So the answer that I'm going to put on this blank here has to be everything from 7 and everything greater than 7, which is really what I already have here. X is greater than or equal to 7. That would be the answer. Okay, let's go ahead and try another one here on the back. We're going to take a look at this one here at the left, number 2. Okay, same thing. We're going to start with our domain restriction. 4x minus 4 is greater than or equal to 0. Move that 4 over. Divide by 4. Domain restriction, x has to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, now we're going to circle back, isolate the radical. We're going to do that by adding 2 to both sides. Once the radical is isolated, we can then square both sides to remove the radical. Okay, we're going to finish solving this. Move the 4 over, divide by 4. X is less than 10. You can go ahead and write the initial answer on the blank, but it's not until you really either think deeply about it or draw the number line that you determine whether you need to take your domain restriction and also attach it on the other side, or whether you're fine with what we have right here. Okay, so again, a quick number line here. I'm going to put the value for the domain restriction, the value for my answer. Okay, domain restriction is everything from 1 and greater. Now on this one, it's not less than or equal to, it's just less than 10. So I want to leave that open on the 10, less than, going to the left. Ooh, I'm looking for where they agree. They agree everything from 1, and they stop agreeing at 10. Feels like they're agreeing everything in between the 1 and the 10. So I'm going to attach over here my domain restriction so that the official answer is everything greater than or equal to 1, but less than 10. Okay, we're going to do one last problem here. Domain restriction. Okay, I'm getting the domain restriction to be x is greater than or equal to 2. Okay, I'm now going to go ahead and isolate this radical. Move this 4 over. Okay, we now can square both sides and finish getting this x by itself. Okay, I'm going to put that initial answer on the blank, but I'm going to draw a number line to finalize this answer here. Okay, our domain restriction, x is greater than or equal to 2. Initial answer, x is less than or equal to 5. Where do they agree? Everything from 2 to 5 and everything in between. So my answer needs to say that. It needs to say everything in between 2 and 5. So I need to attach my domain restriction onto my answer. Okay, that brings this lesson to a close, and the homework assignment is the worksheet 6.7b titled